Hey Puckheads, Jacob Bourne here. Firstly, thank you for tuning in to Born to Puck, whether it be on WordPress, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, or however else you found it. We really appreciate you guys coming in and listening. Please subscribe and tell your friends about us. The more Puckheads, the better. Secondly, please excuse the technical difficulties we have in today's episode. Unfortunately, there's only so much you can do in post-production. And yes, we're all good here at the Bourne house. Just had to save a couple of rooms from bursting pipes, and we had to get some new ones. No big deal. Finally, you can chirp on Twitter with us at Jacob Bourne, Jacob_Bourne, or at Matt Riegler, MatTriegler, or email us at borntopuck@gmail. Thanks again, and remember to chirp what you love.
You know, Jacob Bourne,
What, Matt Riegler?
they tell me I had a lot of fun on New Year's Eve. What about you?
They tell you had a lot of fun on New Year's?
They told me I had a lot of fun on New Year's Eve.
I also had a lot of fun on New Year's. Who is this they you speak of?
This they that I speak of, they be my friends. I've grown up with just about all of them. However, I didn't grow up with their girlfriends. That'd have been a little weirder.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. Well, you never know. You could do the whole childhood sweetheart dealio.
You know, I've always been curious about meeting somebody like that. I've known people who grew up in the same town but weren't really friends in high school, and then after college got together. Like, I've heard of that. But I don't know anyone that said, yeah, when I was 5, man, I was sold and ready.
I don't know
No.
anybody like that. My parents were high school sweethearts. That's about as far as it goes, for me at least, in personal experience.
Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, super senior.
I believe they met sophomore year, but didn't start going out until junior year.
And you were born which year of college?
I was born 12 years after college, I think. No. 8 years after college. 12 years after high school.
Well, that's not as funny for a guy from Missouri.
No, there's no college pregnancies going on in my family.
So it's January 1st, about 5, 6 o'clock. I'm still reeling after the joy that was the Winter Classic, and I made sure I saw that shit in HD. Oh my god, that was fun! And a girl that at the bar, I gave my number out to a few different women, to be quite
Okay.
honest. And if
Okay.
any of them are hearing this, and you're the one that didn't call, you're the one that I was hoping would.
Just throw out that blanket statement for all of them.
Right, and if you're the one from New Jersey who I have been talking to, but haven't the last few days, and I'd like it if you contacted me again because, like, you're interesting and we have a mutual interest in chemistry. Anyway, this is not the Matt Riegler dating show. So, the other one who called me about 5, 6 o'clock on January 1st just to say, sorry, you gave me your number and you're handsome and I like hockey, but you know, I just wanted to call you and tell you that I'm not interested.
That's awesome. Good for her. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. Like, I was flabbergasted at first because normally, you know, you find out the other way around that they're not interested, which is, you know, I guess I'm finding that out with the other one.
Right.
But yeah, it was really cool. Like, I love it when people step up and say just no thank you.
Yeah, that's good because then it doesn't make anything awkward and it doesn't make you feel like whether you're texting too much or not texting enough or calling too much or not calling enough or whatever you do.
Well, a friend, and this one is female. A friend
Ooh.
told me that shocked indeed. Told me that I should have taken her number and contacted her after New Year's Eve, as opposed to giving her my number, account, and waiting for her to contact me because women prefer to be pursued. And while that may or may not be true, you know what? This guy likes to be pursued once in a while as well.
Everybody likes to be pursued because then it's like you know that they were thinking about you, or they if you're being pursued, you know the other party is automatically interested. Like you know that happens.
Yeah, and like, what's so bad about she taking the lead for a change? All of the best things, well, I guess I shouldn't say all, but many of the best things that have happened between me and females that I have mutual interest with have occurred when she steps up, when she gives me a hug, when she pays for my dinner, when she initiates sex. Everything is made better with a female who knows how to step up and take the lead.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. Also, I play devil's advocate. I'm sure they like all of that when we do it too. They like it when we pay for dinner. They like when we initiate the hug, all that good stuff.
Oh, totally. But I love it just a wee bit more because I just go for it. I just you know what, you're cool. Here's my number. I don't I don't wait for a person to meet special specifications, which is probably
Mm.
why I have such a high fail rate in the first place. But I usually beat her to the punch, even if she's the one who usually initiates. And
Mm-hmm.
good on her for telling me straight up that she's not interested.
Yes, that is great.
You know, Jacob,
What?
they say it's the turn of the year. They say it's a new year. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Well, my New Year's resolutions, like probably many other people in the United States, was to hit the gym more.
Hmm.
And I kicked off that New Year's resolution hard today by waking up at 10:35, which was about 35 minutes after I was supposed to wake up, and binge watch Netflix till about noon. Instead of working out, so that was a fantastic start to my New Year's resolution.
I know the perfect thing for both of us.
What?
Treadmill desk.
Yes, that would be awesome. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I want a treadmill desk. Can anyone give me like $1,200 so I could please go get a treadmill desk? I have the perfect spot for it in the house. But
Really,
yeah, I
all you
do.
all you need is like a shelf, not necessarily a desk, just a shelf.
A treadmill shelf? How would that work?
No, no, like so you're on a treadmill, but then you put like a shelf right in front of the
Yeah, that's
right.
that's the desk part.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
I thought maybe you were gonna suggest that maybe it has a cabinet as well, which would be cool. But you know,
Yeah,
Jake,
maybe.
one of the most
Yeah.
interesting things about hockey is to talk about the way people get into hockey in the first place.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, what was your
Yes.
hockey beginnings?
My hockey beginnings was me at the ripe old age of 3 years old being put into a learn to play program my at the club that I eventually played at for 12 years. Sounds about right. Yeah, 12 years. My dad grew up playing pond hockey uh, over by his house, and he loved the game, but he was never able to play it uh, organized. And then so my mom started looking around all at these different places in St. Louis, and it came down to this team called the Kirkwood Stars or the Afton Americans. Kirkwood was a little bit more expensive because you had jerseys with your nameplate on the back, and then Afton let you rent gear until you were a squirt. So
Hmm.
that would be around the age of 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Um, we went to Afton because so that way they didn't have to start buying me gear until I was about 8 or 9, and then also they did not have nameplates on the back of the jersey, so you just get one jersey at the beginning of the year and then turn it in at the end. Um,
That's a really that's a really good cost saving idea. Wow, where'd
yep.
my vocabulary go? That's a really good cost saving idea.
Yeah, so that's how I started playing hockey. But for as long as I can remember, me and my dad and my mom and my little brother too would watch hockey games on our TV all the time. I remember what was it? This was I was 7 or 8, and we wanted. This was right after the Blues, I guess their TV rights from Channel 11, which was on standard TV, to Fox Sports Midwest. And then so we didn't have cable at the time, and then so my dad and myself are pitching my mom pretty hard. Hey, let's go get cable. Like we really want Fox Sports Midwest. We really want to be able to watch the hockey team. And she comes home one day and she goes, "Well, the good news is that we're getting cable." And then like I'm all excited, and then she goes, "But the bad news is Fox Sports Midwest was extra, so we're not getting it." And I'm like on the verge of tears because I was so upset. My dad was just slack jawed. Like, how did this? Like, what do you mean it's extra? And then she goes, "Oh no, I'm just kidding with you. We're gonna get it." It was the best prank my mom has ever pulled. Ever. It was fantastic. It was beautifully executed.
Yeah. The best prank mom ever pulled was that she once told me she loved me.
that that's harsh. That
No,
is
I'm
so
just,
mean.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. She dropped me a few too many times. She's justified.
So what about you? How did you become a hockey and
Well,
Rangers fan?
I got one more question for you though.
Okay.
When you were growing up, uh, and
Yeah.
we all do this. Anyone who follows sports will do this instinctively, especially when we're kids. Who were the players that you grew to be attached to, and why, if any reason?
Um I I really liked Brett Hull when I was
Hmm.
growing up, because he was obviously the big name. He, as a little kid, like that's what you want to be. You want to be the goal scorer, and so I followed
Yeah,
him. And then I liked him when he was on the Blues. I was a little upset when he left, but I got a Dallas Stars jersey um, because of Brett Hall
that's
when he went to
cool.
Dallas. And then when he went to Detroit, I was not particularly happy with him because I was still fueling my hatred for the Red Wings. And then after him, um, I liked. He left in like 2000, 2001. I'm not sure if we had Kachuk yet or not, but I'm pretty sure we did. And then so I kind of switched to Kachuk. Um,
How long did it take
and
you to be able to learn how to spell his name?
I'm still shaky with how to spell his name. It
Hold
so
on.
yeah.
I mean, why don't you I got it up right now. Just take a stab at
All
it.
right. I think it's Tckachuk.
Close.
Yeah. What is it?
T-K-A-C-H-U-K.
Damn it! Damn it!
You were close though.
Yeah, it's the pesky K. I knew there was a K, and I can never remember if there's that C at the beginning or not. But yeah, so Kachuk was my big fan favorite, and then there's also guys like McGinnis who I really like too. I think he was my buffer guy in between Kachuk and Hall was McGinnis because he was one of those guys that has been there for a while, and he was the hard shooting defenseman rather.
No Pronger?
He was more along the lines of like, there's nothing really big that stands out with me and Pronger except for the fact that he won the Hart Trophy in '99 2000. But that's really it. Other than that, there's no big moments. And then he left by 2004, I want to say,
Hmm. I'm not
because then
looking
he
it
went to
up, but that
Edmonton and he
sounds
went
about
to
right.
yeah. I mean, because I know it was right after the lockout. Right after the lockout, we couldn't afford his contract. So '05,
Yeah,
he
that
went
sounds yeah,
to
that sounds right.
he went to Edmonton, and but yeah, I mean, yeah, that was kind of the it was just he was just I like McGinnis better because also I played against McGinnis as a kid a couple of times, and so I'd see Al at the rink every once in a while, and so I knew him a little bit better than Pronger. Well, I knew him more so than Pronger.
Last season, I was coaching two teams up in Manhattan. One of mites, one of squirts.
Oh,
Uh,
cool,
yeah,
very cool.
and we started out at Chelsea Piers, and you know how times can overlap with different age groups. So
Yeah.
I never really figured out if this was an overlap or if he was taking. Oh, I never really figured out why he was there, but a handful of times while we were still at Chelsea Piers before we moved over to Lasker Rink, Brendan Shanahan and I guess his youngest son were there. And I'm a coach, so I'm just coaching the people who are there. Um, and yeah, we're aware of Shanahan's presence. I didn't know why he was there. He wasn't on an official roster that I was given. Maybe, the head coach had it.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, his kid wasn't doing the drill, and I had to be stern, and I had to bang my stick on the ground, on the ice, and bark at him. And Brandon's out there; he's helping us coach, and he just looks at me, and it's
Oh
just a
no.
deadpan look. No, but it was a deadpan look. It was a deadpan neutral look, and we just locked eyes. And I, I mean, it seemed like forever, but I'm sure it was only a few seconds. And and in my head, I'm just going, I'm just doing my job, man. I'm not. This isn't personal. I never got a chance to talk to him before he asked me. It didn't come up organically. Yeah, we were. I literally have bumped shoulders with Brendan Shanahan, but like there was no natural moment to talk to him for any reason. He didn't
Right.
come into the coach's room to dress or undress, um, or whatever. But um, Shanahan looks like two kinds of people simultaneously.
Okay.
He looks like the kind of pugilist that also has a perfect IQ score.
Okay.
Um, and Irish. He looks really Irish, and it's
Oh,
probably
I
because
guess
he
I can
is
see that a little bit.
Irish.
I mean, that might be it. I don't know.
But no, he even at his 40 whatever age, he's still got the professional athlete, young man professional athlete physique. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that without trying, he could flick me into a coma.
Just flick you on the side of the temple, knock you out.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Okay,
man.
so how did I get into hockey?
I don't know. How did you?
Um, what's that?
I said I don't know. How did you?
I'm trying to remember. So many concussions ago.
Oh no.
So when I was young, I was very ADHD.
Okay.
Emphasis on the H. So I was suggested to my folks that one of the best ways to curtail or to at least use up some of the excess energy is to put a kid in a vigorous sport. Our town has hockey. Actually, hockey's pretty big in this town. Although
Mhm.
they're all Islanders fans, so I don't really relate to them. And so at age 4, and I could do it at I could join the mites. I think for 4-year-olds because I'm born in December, and I
Okay.
just made the threshold for when 4-year-olds could skate around with the older mites. We were called bites,
Okay.
which is cute. I hated hockey until I was like 7 or 8. I hated it. I hated it with a fiery passion.
Was it too long of a season?
No, nothing fit right. I couldn't skate. It was cold. I didn't really understand what I was doing. The coaches had funny accents. Once I learned how to skate, like around 7 or 8, once I really got that down, I loved it because and that's also when things started to fit properly. I mean, not everything. I was under 5 foot going into high school, so things fitting right.
Wasn't
Oh,
necessarily a normal thing.
it still isn't at age 26. But my hockey beginnings was that finally learning how to skate, as well as taking in the Rangers during the 93 season. 93-94 season, and they were really coincidental because as a 7-year-old, you have at best a vague, abstract idea of winning and losing. So the
Right.
fact that the Rangers were as good as they were in 93-94 wasn't, I mean, meant nothing to me. However, by the time you got to the playoffs, I loved hockey so much. I was turning down courtside playoff Knicks tickets to stay home and watch the Rangers.
Oh wow. Wow, that's impressive.
So it was those two things, and then as I grew up, I mean, it's I got to watch Adam Graves and Kovalev and Leach and Messier and Gretzky and Robitaille and Richter and then post 2004 lockout, I got to watch the Yager line, and that's how I affectionately referred to him because come on, it was four. It was five Czechs. It was four Czechs and a Swede. It was Nylander between Straka and Yager with Malik and Roosevelt, and that was the Rangers with Lundqvist in net.
Right.
And I got into fantasy hockey in when I was 15. Or I got into fantasy sports, but fantasy hockey, and it's just been building since. But once I learned how to skate, that's when everything started to click in.
Okay. That's that's I love the fact that you turned down 93, 94 Knicks tickets to stay at home and watch hockey, because I know I would definitely do the same thing, because my big flack is even now people are I'll get chirped on Twitter from guys who will be watching playoff Cardinals games, like NLCS games, and then I'll be sitting there on Twitter talking about the Blues regular season game against San Jose. And they're like, "Shut up, boy, there's a baseball game going on." I don't give a shit. I'm watching the game. This is what I do.
Yeah, I've gotten that about talking about Rangers games while the Yankees are playing the Phillies in the World Series.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's whatever. I just like it. I love it. That's one thing that I really like, is that the passion of the fans is just as much, if not more so, than the players themselves.
And when I went to the first game I have memories of, it was an Islanders Devils game. And both teams were bad at the time.
Yeah,
Well, the Islanders made the playoffs that year, so I guess they weren't that bad. But in any event, it became such a visceral experience, and when you're like 7 years old, that's an astounding, that's an overwhelming type of experience. Like I had already been to a funeral by the time I had gone to this game, and like I barely understand life. Um, but going to the hockey game, oh my God, the coldness, but the crispness of the odd smell of the fumes from the Zamboni and all the rubber, the people drinking beer and eating popcorns and talking about people that are from countries that are not America, and trying to learn all these strange names, and it was just, and then hearing and feeling the rattle of the glass, or the rupture of the puck, the cut of the skate. I've been to baseball games by that point, and like had field level seats, and it wasn't as impactful an experience as going to a fucking Islanders Devils games.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's really nothing like going to a Blues, not a Blues game, a hockey game in general. I was thinking Blues because I'm trying to find this. Um, I'm trying to find this one. Where is it? Please tell me they have the playoffs. No, they don't have. Um,
Oh, by the way, do you know the significance of the 93-94 Knicks season?
they were. It would be the first. Wasn't it the first time that the Knicks were in the
In
NBA
the
Finals in like a really long time, and it was going on the exact same time that
Yeah,
the
the
Rangers were in the
Rangers.
Cup.
Yeah, you
It
nailed
wasn't
it.
it. It was like the first time, or it was the first time in a really long time that a city could win both the NBA Finals and the NHL Finals in the same year.
I think it was the first time. It was probably well, no, because the Bruins and Celtics. I don't know how they lined up back in the Ray Bork years.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was also when Larry Bird was there.
Oh, that's
So
true. That's true.
you know what? That night that I no, 87 was Hextall. Anyway, 84 or 5 or so, when Ray Bork and the Bruins lost to the Oilers, Larry Bird was probably losing to Magic Johnson and the Lakers. But it was definitely the first time since then. And the Bruins were the first ones to do that. So again,
Right.
just a supremely rare event.
Right. Um, Speaking of first NHL games, the first game I went to that I remember is, I believe it's in 97, 98. So I'm 5 at this. No, 6. It was one of the years, it was either 95, 96, or no, it wasn't 95, 96. Uh, Actually, scratch that. Let me rephrase this. It was sometime between the 1995-96 season and the 97-98 season. And the reason why I preference that is because it was a playoff game against the Red Wings. And those were the last 3 times that I remember the Blues being in their old 90s jerseys, which was happened there. Anyway, I remember it was a double overtime playoff game in Scottrade. I was probably 7 or 8 rows from behind the glass on the side that the Blues defended twice. And I remember there's like a couple in front of me that caught a puck. And that's about the most I remember of the game besides the double overtime game. It's not the same game that Yzerman scored his double overtime shot from the point. I know it's not that game because I was in Detroit. So I don't know exactly what game it was, but I know that's the first hockey game I remember going to.
Do you point a specific finger at Pronger or McInnes or Cujo for not stopping that fucking puck?
No, my point of blame goes to Wayne Gretzky for turning the puck over.
I've yet to run into a St. Louis Blues fan who doesn't point a finger at Wayne Gretzky for something.
It's such a touchy situation because it's pretty much the fact that it was such a hot, not volatile. That's what I'm looking for. Volatile situation when Pronger is in St. Louis because the higher ups weren't using him in the right way, and he wanted to be in St. Louis because his wife is from St. Louis, but it just never worked out, and he wasn't getting either the playing time he wanted to, or he wasn't in the right system or whatever. But they basically wouldn't let Gretzky play his own game, even though he had Brett Hull and
8
and
goals,
Pronger.
13 assists for 21 points in only 18 games.
Exactly, he was producing as much as Gretzky should, and he just
16 points in the playoffs.
Yeah, it was unbelievable how good he was with the Blues. The problem is that him and the head coach and Mike Keenan,
who's always the problem. He's the problem.
Yeah, he's always a problem. They just butted heads so much that I believe Gretzky said a quote or something like that. It was it wasn't until the second overtime of that game, then that intermission, and that until he realized that he was going to leave the Blues. He wanted to, and then as soon as something happened in that series where he's just I'm done. I can't be here anymore. It was that game something happened. It might have been that turnover, and Keenan just laid into him, and he just said, "Screw it, I'm done."
Didn't
I don't know.
Keenan also get let go after that?
I don't know if it was after that season, but I know he did eventually get let go, which was smart because it was awful. He was awful.
He's my kid.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're talking about all these wonderful memories, and I feel like HBO and the NHL gave us a few. You want to talk about the Winter Classic at 24/7?
Yeah, I'm gonna preface this by saying my Winter Classic was it was awesome to watch, and me, my brother, and my dad always have the tradition where it started in 2008, where we all sit down and watch the game. This was the first time that I was significantly hungover watching the game, and it was not fun. I mean, it was good. It was a great game. Just parts are a little bit fuzzy because I was battling the hangover more so than I was paying attention to the game.
You know what? Full disclosure, I wasn't very far behind you. I was turning to my favorite combinations of, I'll just have more alcohol, and I'll have some coffee, and I'm going to drink all the soup in the house.
I resorted to not eating anything in fear of it coming back up, which happened a couple of times. But it was the Winter Classic was awesome, and 24/7. I mean, we've talked about it already. Whereas we think that this was not a necessarily good season, but the final episode knocked it out of the park of 24/7 because the Winter Classic, it was perfect. I mean, the snow was unbelievable. I know it's not the best playing conditions, but it's not about the playing experience. It's about or it's not about the game, it's about the whole experience in general. Like the best
Yeah,
description I've heard is if you don't go to a concert to listen to music. Because you go to a concert for the whole experience and the crowd and the banter back and forth with the musicians and all that stuff. That
that's
sort of
true.
same the that sort of same deal is with the Winter Classic. You're not going to the Winter Classic to watch a hockey game. You're going to the Winter Classic to take in the experience of being at an outdoor hockey game where it's something that up until this season only happened once a year, and it's a big spectacle, and it's very important to the league and to the teams, and you get to really see basically these men go back to being boys and play out on a pond, which is what the Winter Classic is supposed to do, and that's what 24/7 and their narrative does, which I think is great. So the game was awesome. 24/7 killed it. Now I have a question for you.
Hmm.
Have you heard Sean Gentili's podcast yet?
I didn't know he had a podcast. I just listened
Well,
to him on with Justin Bourne.
yes, that's the one I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard? Do you see how much or hear? I guess. Do you hear how much he sounds like Phil Kessel?
Yes. I'm gonna have to link. All right, folks. I've linked to this on the WordPress on the YouTubes. But yeah.
Yes, it's uncanny how much he sounds like him. It was dying, and the best was he has this vine, which I can throw up on the blog as well. It's a vine of of him. It's when they're in their locker room, and Kessel goes to Burke, nice one there, Berkey, and then Berkey yells burn. It's a vine, and
Yeah.
Sean talks over Phil's part, and it doesn't miss a beat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's definitely going on the blog.
Yeah, I'm gonna find it right now, and I'm gonna favorite it so that way I don't forget.
All right. All right.
But yeah,
Oh, yeah. That was. All right. So I didn't particularly enjoy watching this rendition or iteration of 24/7. And who do I blame? If anyone, you probably blame the Red Wings and the Maple Leafs collectively. It never seemed like there was a whole lot. They didn't ever seem like they had a lot to work with in this particular iteration of it. So I do agree with you that the final episode knocked it out of the park. But for me, it was the only time I really enjoyed the series. And
yes, I agree.
I'm disappointed, but I'm really just disappointed by the participants. And I know that it's their franchise that signs them up for it, and that these individual players, even the ones that signed over the summer when they knew that the Wings and the Leafs were going to be on 24/7, even the ones that signed as a free agent, they're not signing up to be on TV in this particular way. I well now I'll say with confidence because if they did sign up to be on TV, they failed miserably. Um,
Yes,
so I'm disappointed that players don't take a camera guy or camera crew and say, this is how I do things, or come
Uh,
on, this is my time of the year where I go to the hospital or I go to the food bank or I spend time with family or me and a bunch of guys get just, and I know JVR sort of did it, but he did it in a way that they didn't really have to interact with anybody. They
and that's
didn't.
how it. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's like I wanted. If you're gonna give me inside access, really give me inside access to things I have to know and be a friend of the person to be there for, or to even know about. Not something I have to be Facebook friends with him for to get an invite to.
And see, I think that's where at least my favorite moments came in is when the players forgot about the cameras or just didn't care about the cameras, and that's when they really let their personality shine through. One of them was, as we talked about in the last one, was when Brendan Smith and Justin Albucator saw the truck spin out in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is when JVR and his family went to play pond hockey out on Christmas Eve, I believe it was. That was cool. And then the other two were in the final episode. The first one was when Kessel and Bozak were showing the apartment around, and when Kessel and Dion Phaneuf were playing ping pong, that was hilarious. And then this is more of the narrative. The final sequence, the last 2 minutes or so, when they talk about what does it mean to be a hockey player or something like that. I thought that was
Yeah.
great because it just brought back all the emotions of when I was playing and being with the boys and all that stuff like that.
Yeah.
The
Really.
only thing that I wish they would have done is like the last line is, "What's the best part about being a hockey player?" It's that it was everything that they hoped it would be.
I had to
It's a
change
great.
my underwear.
See, I actually don't think it was that great of a line
Oh.
because the whole point about it was that whole narrative was for them to sum up what it means to be a hockey player.
And they define the phrase by using the phrase.
Exactly. It was like it's
Okay.
everything that they hoped it would be. That explains literally nothing about it.
But we didn't really get to figure out what exactly that is. But I
Right.
think I can still tell you.
Exactly. It's like they could not think of a way to sum it up, and so they just kind of half-assed it. I think it should have been something along the lines of, what does it mean to be a hockey player? It's to be a hockey player is something that you can't put into words. It's just a feeling you have, a passion
Oh,
for the sport.
that's even worse. That's worse
It's
because
because
no, because
no,
the way
go
that
ahead,
they
because
phrased it, is at least you're able to use uh the pictures and the video that they're showing you to fill in the gap. When you say it like that, you just said it. You're like the America's Choice version. It's like we know you love hockey. Here's our generic version of the same thing that you love when you skate around on the ice and have a stick in your hand.
I mean, okay, here. Why do you love hockey? Why do you love hockey?
Why do I love hockey? I love hockey because it uses all of your senses while forcing you to develop others. And not just on the ice, but off the ice as well. It forces you to understand the difference between knowing what somebody's going to do and understanding what somebody's going to do. And it makes you understand the difference between what will happen if you wait for something to come to you or if you go to it. If it allows you to understand how this a pair of eyeballs from the same perspective can see two totally different things. It allows you to understand, or when you're a kid, that you could realize that pain is nothing. It's not that important. It's not a thing that should be controlling you in any way. It's just this temporary sensation that you're feeling, and that you're going to be okay, and that you need to just keep on going. It doesn't matter if it's physical pain because you blocked a shot or you got hit, or if it's emotional pain because you made a terrible turnover and it went the other way for the GWG, or because the coach is ripping into you, or that you lost the game. It shows you that pain is just an experience that you're supposed to learn from, and not just learn to that you don't want to experience that again, but really learn what led up to it and what you can do to not just avoid that outcome, but achieve the outcome that you want, and then become better for it. Baseball, I grew up captaining all of my baseball teams from like little league up to through high school. And you know what baseball teaches you? It teaches you patience and forethought. Yeah, forethought and patience get you pretty far in hockey, especially if you're a goalie. They don't compare if you don't also have instinct. If you don't learn hard skills like stick handling and wrist shots and skating, it's so encompassing. Even as a coach, and I've done a lot of coaching, hockey is just, it's everything and more.
See, now that is what it should have been. Hockey is everything and more. That is because
That's
exactly like. But see, no. Because listen, because all you said is totally right. There's no other sport in the world that forces you to become a cohesive unit and forces you to become a team. And that, like you said, blocking shots, nothing else teaches you like sacrifice. Nothing tells you, because what is it? When you go and block a shot, instinct because you know you need to put your body on the line and you need to go down and block this shot because if not, it could be putting the rest of your team in a worse situation than where you were before. It definitely, I know that this is going to be a little cliche, but it's telling you to play for the name on the front and not the one on the back. And I feel like that there is no other sport in the world that teaches you more about being a team player and having ideals such as always striving to be your best, putting in the hard work for situations that you might not see till 3-4 years down the line.
How
It
about and also
teaches
a sport that
everything.
doesn't wear on the body like football, and just to give a comparison, like football does, where you could be no longer capable of playing football by the age of 23, 4, 5, and the rest of your life is compromised because of it. Hockey is it's more about endurance and than anything
Yes.
else. And when you if you're not a pugilist, right? If you're any position on the ice other than just a pure pugilist, you learn how to train. You learn how to train your body, you learn how to train your mind, you learn how to train your mind for your body, you learn how to train your mind for your mind, you learn how to train your body for your mind. It's all encompassing.
Hmm.
And in a way that assists you in growing as a person. You can take these lessons and you can apply them to other aspects of your life. And that is probably why I got started in hockey in the first place.
Hmm. I agree.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
I'm the same way. I attribute a lot of the person who I am is because of my dad getting me hockey. Like that is 100% just because of how hockey teaches you hard work and discipline and sacrifice and all that. I totally agree with that.
And for everyone out there who has that one friend or family member whose first instinct when their team or the team that they're rooting for enters the offensive zone to scream shoot is okay, this is the order of operations for your response. Cringe, sigh silently. Must be silent. They hear you sigh, it's done. But you should sigh because that relieves the stress. And then you should try to explain the game to them. And
I
as
agree.
complicated or as simplified as it needs to be, you say, well, if they shot it there, bad things would have happened. It would have been a
This would
waste
happen.
of a
That's true.
that's a waste of a possession to shoot from there, especially when you're only just entering the zone, sir or madam.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, I think we've talked about how we got into hockey and why we love hockey. Now, there's also one other aspect that most people love just as much, and that would be their country. So let's talk a little bit about the Olympics and what we think of the U.S. roster in hockey, Canada's roster, or any other team's roster. So why don't you get us started on that?
All right, I will. I think that in particular, the North American rosters, the powers that be, they overthought it. And they overthought it in three specific examples. Bobby Ryan and Keith Yandel, they
Yep.
and I read this Adam Gretz, SB Nation, I believe. I don't have it in front of me, so Mr. Gretz or anyone who's familiar, if I'm wrong on that publication, I apologize. However, the link is in the description and on the blog. He talks about, and Justin Bourne talks about this as well. They talk about the bigger sheet isn't about having faster players. It's about having smarter players, as well as when we look back, and this is mostly Gretz, when we look back pre-expansion, the top three lines were typically all scorers. And he gives
Hmm.
a chart for the average breakdown by percentage of first, second, and third line, who scored the highest percentage of goals, obviously first, and then second, and then third. Strangely, the first line, the first line has a wavering percentage. One year it's at 43, and one year it's at 35% of the team's goals. The second line holds steady at about 22 to 5%, and then the third line descended gradually over the years. And the first and the third lines are the ones I'm going to talk about. The
All right.
first line I believe is an example of defensemen getting into the scoring. And I sort of got the idea from Gretz, but I was thinking about it as I was reading along. In particular, when Bobby Orr came into the league, that's when we saw a real expansion of defensemen scoring just in general and not being a secondary assist or just having the odd bomb from the point going, but defensemen intentionally trying to score. And then the reason that the third line had a declining amount of percentage goals is because the pool from which these players were drawn from started to expand and it started to thin out. When we are in the Olympics, it is an over-aggrandized all-star game. The Americans and the Canadians in particular have the ability to ice 3 scoring lines. The Olympic game is not the NHL game. The Olympic game is a possession game. It's a think speed game. It's a put a screen and do a good job deflecting game. It's a positional game when you're playing defense. If you have a person like Bobby Ryan or Keith Yandel who are capable of handling the puck, who are capable of thinking ahead of the play, and are capable of putting the puck in the back of the net, you have them on your team. It doesn't matter if they're the third line or the third pair. These guys have figured out how to score. And you want them. And if you are a team who can have 3 or 4 scoring lines, you have 3 or 4 scoring lines. The last example is Patrice Bergeron. And I am not a disliker of Patrice Bergeron the same way I am not a champion of Bobby Ryan or Keith Yandel. They're all players I would happily have on my fantasy team or my Rangers, but they're not people that I think of off the bat. And the reason why I say that Patrice Bergeron is an example of Team Canada overthinking is because at this particular time in his career, when he's coming off a lot of recovery from the summer, the Bruins are not a very good scoring team this year, and he's himself not a primary scorer. He's an example of a defensive-minded forward, which is fine. You're not going to have to kill penalties as Team Canada. But if you can have another center in there, and just to name the first one that came into my head, Joe Thornton.
Mm-hmm.
If you can have Joe Thornton out there as a third line center, I don't understand how you pass him up. He's Joe Thornton. And Patrice Bergeron is a defense first player. That being said, other than these couple of examples, I think that Team USA and Team Canada are about as good as they're going to get. They maximize 2 particular things. They maximize roster flexibility, and they maximize balance. And those 2 can be mutually exclusive. So, yeah, we know that Team USA and Canada are going to be forces to be reckoned with, but they're not unbeatable. They're as flawed as any other team. And again, it's a 1-game elimination, so any given Sunday, right?
Right.
So that's what I got off the bat. What do you got?
My initial thought was I really like the Team USA, and part of that, I mean, obviously because I'm an American, but also part of that is because I really like the idea of a lunch pail, blue collar sort of 2-way team. And for the exact reasons that you talked about, it's about a possession game, and it is about being able to work in the gritty areas and get the dirty goals down in the offensive
in Olympic
zone.
hockey on a 200 by 100?
I think, yeah, because, I mean, think about it.
That's a lot of space to be dirty in.
I mean, here's the whole point about it, though. It's a lot more. There's a lot that open ice, so the skaters have that ability to work, like, weave in and out, and that's fine. But again, you don't win hockey games with flash. You win hockey games through grit and by capitalizing on your opportunities. And what's going to happen is that blue collar sort of team is going to be is a lot more willing to go in and fight and dig out those pucks, and also they're more willing to go and get those opportunities. Like I'm saying, you're not going to see guys like, pull Canada's roster just as an example. You're not going to see guys like Sidney Crosby or Stammer if he's there, maybe, or Corey Perry, in the sense that those are the guys who they have a lot of flash and they use a lot of skill to get their goals. But they're not guys who all the time goes into the corner or is willing to make a pass in order to get hit. Those kind of guys are like the David Backes, the Dustin Brown, the Ryan Kelly, like the TJ Oshie, the
I'm
Blake
sorry,
Wheeler.
buddy. I completely disagree with you, and not about the flash versus grit. You need both, and you need to understand which your team is better at, and make that be the forefront. But 200 by 100, especially in up to 7 games over 12 days, that is way too much skating that you have to do in order to win. To be a lunch pail team, all right, so I disagree with a lot of Team USA's roster, but they're not pulling from the same kind of pool that Canada is. There's really no good reason for Brown or Stepan or Callahan, just to name the first three, to be on the team. They're having terrible seasons and they're injured. Callahan is being held together by floss, or duct tape. And he has been for almost a calendar year now. Dustin Brown's having a terrible season. He looks like he's aged by 5 years. And Derek Stepan he doesn't look lost, but he looks timid. And actually, he kind of does look injured, but that's another story. They have no business being on the team this particular season. Now, if this was 2013 Olympics, it would be a different conversation, but USA is not going to be playing a grit style because that's what their capabilities allow for. They're going to be playing a grit style because they're going to be playing a safe style. Team USA is going to be a possession team, a high possession team, and a low risk team. That's why Keith Yandel isn't there.
See, that's my thing, though. I definitely do think Yandel should be on the team because I like what he brings to the table, and I like that offensive ability that he brings, and he's he's one of those guys, a defenseman who's willing to jump up in the rush. So he's got a shot from the blue line that has eyes a lot of times, and I feel like he would have helped. I feel like he can help USA more so than he would hurt.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with having a couple of guys that will make a high risk chance. It's not that big a deal. Though I wonder if sometimes we don't overcredit powerful defensemen, or let me rephrase that, defensemen who are noted scorers because they play so much further back from the goal. Obviously, the blue line's further back, and they're at such a steeper competition that the defense in their position becomes that much more elevated in importance.
Mm-hmm.
And so having an offensive defenseman isn't as valuable as having a defensive defenseman, which is why I really thought that Dan Hamhuis was an interesting selection, in particular because he is also a Canuck like Luongo. It's important to have communication between your defenseman and your goaltender. Team USA doesn't have, off the top of my head anyway, doesn't have a defenseman who also plays with the goalie.
Nope.
Team Canada has a defenseman that plays with the goalie, and while he'll obviously be a third pair guy, it's just one more level of chemistry, and it's one more level of communication.
Yeah.
It's what makes Kunitz such an interesting pick because it's not just Crosby, it's Getzlaf and Perry as well. And it's part of what proliferates about the American roster because so many of these players have played with each other, and that sometimes can help make up the lack of skill.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that because chemistry is definitely that. I mean, chemistry could be the difference between having a team that goes to the Stanley Cup and a team that gets knocked out in the quarterfinals, just based off of how well they play with each other and where they know they're going to be on the ice and stuff like that. It's one of the intangibles, I guess.
Yeah, come to think of it, Subban and Price, they're on the same team as well.
Yeah, that's the only one because Smith doesn't have anybody with his defenseman.
I really want to know how long it takes post-Olympics for these guys to start talking to each other about the game plans that they had against one another. What was it like for Taves and Kane, for example? How long did it take for them to start talking about what they were planning for, in the gold medal game? I want that to be on camera.
I bet that happened. Well, they're going to kind of do it. What is it? NBC Sports is doing that thing. I don't know what it's called, but they're basically doing a 24/7-esque show before the Olympics. So I think they're filming it now. They're getting ready to start filming it now. Then they go over to Sochi, film there, and then film like a week or two after the Olympics. And it's centered around U.S. and Canadian superstars on the team, like Patrick Kane and Taze, and I think Stamkos was going to be one of them. So Crosby's probably going to be another one. Back here in the U.S., it might be Kessel could be one. I could see a Ryan Miller or Suter or something like that. It's going to be so they're going to do that kind of in-depth sort of show. Me personally, I think those conversations cap up the first time they're in the locker room, like the first time they're back in their club team's locker room. Because let's say Taze wins the cup, I bet the first thing he comes in and goes to Kaner and goes, "Hey, how does that silver taste?" Something like that, something along those lines.
Oh, they've got to have, and supposedly these two they've got to have a really good relationship to be able to say shit like that.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's the point. I feel like that happens, and it might be a little bit different for like Ryan Getzlaf and Cam Fowler, just because they're not on the same line. One of them's really young, one of them's older and is much more of a veteran. So that one, it might not be the same level, but I still feel like it happens. Maybe not along those lines, or they might say, "Hey, great game there," and the silver, sorry, and the gold medal, sorry you didn't get the win, or something like that. But yeah, I feel like it definitely happens, and I feel like they've got to talk about the game. I mean, it's got to happen fairly soon. Otherwise, I just feel like it's almost like an elephant in the room.
All right. Well, last bit for me on the Olympics. I don't really have much to say about the European teams or the Russian teams or team. I don't really know enough about their subsidiary leagues in each country to comment. Oh, I don't, snub or whatever. So, maybe Peter Nedved, he's 1,000,000 years old.
No, Sandis Ozilic is playing for somebody.
Yeah, and
I think he's
I think
don't
he's
know which
Czech.
team he's on. Latvian.
Latvian.
But yeah, I mean,
They're all just Russian to me.
I have like a hockey card of Sandis Ozilin in like 96, 97. Like he's one of those guys that have been around for so long that I figured he'd retired. I completely forgot he went over and played in Europe.
Yeah, that's what everyone said about Nedved. Anyway, so on Elliot Friedman's 30 for 30, he has a bit about injuries, and he tells us the timetable for injuries, Olympic injuries. So I'll read you the paragraph.
All right.
The International Ice Hockey Federation rules allow players to be replaced up to 24 hours before a team's first game, if injured or in some kind of extreme personal situation.
Okay.
So, Jacob Bourne.
Yes.
Who do you think might get replaced and with whom due to injury?
Oh, man.
With American rosters. Well, it could be
North
European as well if you really want.
Well, I mean, I guess at least for me, the biggest question mark is going to be on the Sweden team is
Louis Eriksson
and Alex Steen.
Yes.
Both of them are out with concussion problems. So, I mean, Steen skated not with the team, but before the latest team practice, and that was before Saturday's game. So he's getting on the ice. Louis, he's doing a little bit of stuff, but he still has a no contact jersey on. So those two might be guys that may or may not come back, and if they're not on the team, then I don't know who comes up. Maybe Patrick Hornquist, maybe Victor Stahlberg or Nyquist. But I don't know. I don't know who pops up for Sweden.
Well, I might have an idea for you.
Yeah.
So Sean Leahy up on Puck Daddy yesterday mentions a few notable exceptions to it. Zibanejad, Hornquist, and Marcus Johansson are notable omissions. And forward, no, they obviously fit the bill. So here's what I think happens. If it's Eriksson that misses, I think that Johansson of the Capitals goes because they're similar. Yeah. They're of a similar play type. and Hornquist would replace Steen because they're a similar play type. I'm
Yep.
not sure if they're handedness, so I can't play for that. But over on the Canadian side, I mean, obviously everyone's worried about Stamkos or
Stammer.
wondering about
Yeah.
Stamkos, as well as Luongo right now.
For Stamkos, he's a right winger, correct? Or is he a center?
He's a center, but he's also a
Oh,
righty.
well, that's Joe Thornton. Joe Thornton, I think, replaces Stamkos if he can't go because we were for the same reasons you said. It's that third line that well, I mean, Stamkos is not going to be playing on the third line, but still, it's a center, and he adds that Stamkos had not necessarily goals, but a lot of assists. So I feel like that's the biggest replacement for Stamkos. Maybe Giroux, but I'm not entirely sure.
I think it's Giroux. I think he's the first one to be included, no matter what. I think that I mean maybe I'm wrong because he wasn't invited to the orientation camp either. It appears that he was never really in consideration for the Olympic team in the first place. So maybe not. But I don't really believe that Marty St. Louis has any chance to make this team. I think it's his age. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the fact that he's a lefty winger, and they have a lot of those already. I think that he doesn't necessarily translate well to the game, to the larger ice sheet. And yeah, it's because he's 5 foot nothing.
Right.
You do need a certain amount of gait in order to cover that ground. So I think that it's Thornton or Drew as well. And then as for a goalie, I mean, I swear, I just don't know.
I don't know who. I don't know. For
Because
Luongo as well.
okay, so if Luongo's not there, obviously Price becomes the starter, and Smith. Everyone moves up a notch.
Right.
Uh,
But then who becomes number 3?
I don't know, Marc-Andre Fleury. If they
Maybe.
really thought that highly of Fleury, he would have been number 3 in the first place.
Right. I don't know if I trust Fleury in a 1-1 game late headed down in the medal round. Like I don't know. But if there's 5 minutes left in the third and it's a 1-1 game, I don't know if I would trust Fleury enough to put him in there just cuz he wins a lot, but he also lets in a lot of goals.
So it could also be Corey Crawford. It could be Braden Holtby.
I think it should be Crawford.
It probably
deserves
would be Crawford. At the very least, he has a lot of familiarity with the other Blackhawks on the team. So
Exactly.
that gives him a real leg up in the communication department. So it's probably not going to matter. And B,
Right.
I think that if Holtby or Crawford or Fleury or whomever else were really in consideration, they would have the third card because I don't necessarily subscribe to. Well, if you're playing your third goalie, shit's gone terribly wrong anyway.
Right.
While that's probably true, that doesn't mean that you give a slot to a lesser player. You still have to represent the country as best that you could.
I agree.
All right, well, I guess that's it for the Olympic talk.
I've got one more thing that I think is just a little interesting.
All right.
I was kind of crunching numbers a little bit. I was trying to figure out which NHL team sent the most players to the Olympics and which teams sent the least.
Thank you for doing this. I had totally forgotten to.
So I'm going to start off with the least. There are 4 teams that only sent 2 players to the Olympics: Calgary, Florida, Nashville, and Ottawa.
Okay.
Those.
Do you have these players?
I don't have them off the top of my head.
That's all right.
But I might be able to scour it.
No, go. If we really want to, we'll do it afterwards. Keep going with the overall tally.
But the most I think is really interesting. There were 3 teams that are sending 10 players across the pond.
Okay, I want to guess.
Okay.
Hawks and Kings, and Blues.
You are 2/3 correct.
All right, that gets me into many different kinds of Hall of Fame.
The Blackhawks, the Blues, and Detroit.
Really? I thought I got the first 2 right with the Kings.
No, Los Angeles is only sending 6.
Oh.
Only sending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rangers are sending 7.
Rangers are sending seven. A team I was surprised by, Montreal is sending 8. I was a little taken aback by that. I just didn't know. I don't know why. I just didn't assume that they would be sending that many, but they are.
I think the only defenseman that they're not sending is Georges because he's also Canadian.
Oh, okay.
I think
Okay.
all their other defensemen are going.
Okay. But yeah, so there's a lot of people. I'm gonna quickly name off the Blues. Actually, I'll name off everybody that has the 10. So the Blues, it's Backus, Berglund, Bouwmeester, Halak, Oshie, Petrangelo, Sobotka, Shattenkirk, Steen, and Tarasenko. And then
Interesting to note that when the Russian team announced their roster, Tarasenko was spelled very differently. I think it was Tereshanko,
yeah,
and they
his
had their version of the vowels over whichever letters.
he spells it a little differently there than he does here. I don't know why. I guess that's just the way it is.
Their alphabet and the way that they enunciate syllables is very different. Where they put pressure is very different, and so the spellings therefore have to be very different. Like it's not Nail Yakupov, it's
It's
Nail
Niall.
Yakupov,
Yeah, yeah, yep.
or it's Nail Yakupov.
I don't know.
Yakupov Yakupov.
Uh, I guess we just like easier sounding words. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
English has a way of streamlining things.
yes, yes. Kind of like, kind of like goodbye was shorthand for God be with ye. God be with ye. So that's
Really?
like, yeah, yeah.
I don't want to
So
use goodbye anymore then.
so it was God be with ye, and then somebody shorthanded it in a letter to G G D B W W Y. Somebody left out all the vowels, and it was essentially text speak for God be with ye. And then as people started reading the letters, they more started taking to it, and that became the word goodbye.
Etymology is so cool.
Yep. So there's a little trivia question
The
for all
more
you
you
listeners
know.
out there. So here's Detroit's roster: is Daniel Alfredson, Datsuk, Jonathan Erickson, Franzen, Gustafson, Howard, Tomas Yurko, Cronwall, Tatar, and Zetterberg.
It's so cool that they have so many young guys going.
Yep.
And Yurko is being, in my mind, tops among them. Man, I really
Yurko
hope
can
that.
play.
What's that?
I said Yurko can play. Him and Tatar. I'm calling it right now. Tatar is going to be the next version of Datsuki. Tatar has some hands. He's got unbelievable shootout skills and just deking abilities in general.
And Yurko looks like he's going to be his own type. Just
Yes.
so I just hope he doesn't necessarily go down the Alex Kovalev route, and that's just because people hate him. I mean, I always had Alex Kovalev on my team. Guy with silky mitts, pops 30, yeah.
Yep.
Uh, Gosh, they're gonna be so much fun to watch when they figure out the NHL game.
Yep. I agree. 100%.
Cool.
And then here's the final for Chicago. It is Hanzus, John Wilson, Hossa, Kane, Keith, Kruger, Oduya, Roosevelt, Sharp, and Tays.
Wow.
Yeah.
Roosevelt.
They've got some talent too. And I just think what's funny about it is that if we were in the 2013 Olympics, Chicago, Detroit, and St. Louis would all be in the same division, sending 10 players. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like, well, it's awesome that you're sending 10 guys over on the Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just an extra 7 games in 12 days that is
Yeah.
added to their schedule and could end up meaning that the wheels fall off 7 games sooner than they would have.
Yeah. The Ducks, the Sharks, and the Ducks, the Sharks. Well, and everyone else, but in particular the Ducks and the Sharks, they're sitting pretty with a really solid team, but not sending nearly as many players over to Sochi,
Well, Anaheim's sending 7.
which is, in my mind, significantly less than 10.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also significantly more than San Jose's 4.
Yes, San Jose, the real winner.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. They finally get a cup. I mean, not at the Rangers' expense, but
But exactly.
so speaking of teams,
Yes.
why don't we talk about our favorite teams, Los Rangers and Blues?
Los Rangers and Los Blues. Well, Blues are riding a 6-game winning streak, and that's with Alex Steen out of the lineup, who's our leading scorer. So I'm pretty happy with that. And the unfortunate thing is talking a little bit about the ICHL at the same time. Yaroslav Halak has been out, so Elliott has really taken the reins, and he's definitely stepped up to the plate, which is awesome for the Blues, but not awesome for my fantasy team because I want Halak to be playing the games that he needs to, especially when he and Bishop are swapping days. They're not playing on the same day. So what should be getting a lot of goalie points is turning out to be both players day to day with illness and a hand injury. And so now I'm getting 0 goaltending points, which has hurt me the last couple of weeks.
I want Halak to be healthy as well. I got him on a few of my teams, and man, just be healthy. There's no one to choose from. I don't want Brizgalov. Please don't make me go pick him up.
Briz, I was so I love Briz just for his universe,
Otherworldliness.
the worldliness, because he's such just an original character. But
Yeah,
I feel for the guy.
we should have story time with Ilya Brizgalov.
That would be fantastic.
I can see it now, especially if we just make a set where we put a doll and tuck it into the bed, and it's him sitting in a lounge at a really fancy lounge chair, smoking a pipe, but it's blowing bubbles, and he just pulls out this ginormous book and starts reading from it.
Oh my god. I can see it right now, and it is beautiful. You know what, Matt? Send that idea to HBO because I'm sure they will eat it up.
Yes, good idea.
Yes.
So I don't really have much to say about the Rangers. It's been a bitch of a season. It got off on the wrong foot because they spent all of off season either recovering from surgery or traveling around the backwoods of Canada, like 50 strong on the roster, and then November was nearly winless. I mean, October was nearly winless. November was good. December was Heckle and Hyde or Jekyll and Hyde. Um, they don't have a lot of chemistry. They don't have a lot of health. They play a chip and chase type game, which just doesn't work when
Nope.
you're not
Nope.
healthy, and you only have one Chris Kreider, and Carl Hagelin doesn't seem to be able to skate like the wind anymore.
No, jump and chase is not the game that any team should be playing, I think, but continue.
I don't want to sound like I'm depressed by it. I'm disappointed because sometimes there's nothing you can really do to overcome the fact that your team doesn't have chemistry and it doesn't have health. I don't care that Ryan Callahan is playing right now. The man isn't healthy. I don't care that Chris Kreider figured out how to pick up a Hail Mary pass. Speed doesn't matter that much in hockey. Instincts and forethought do. You're always going to be limited in terms of how much speed matters. And I mean, this is long distance speed we're talking about. Because
Right.
the rink is segmented. Because you can't enter the offensive zone until the puck does. Because 10 strides at most should get you from one end of the rink to the other.
Yeah.
So
It's not about the short speed. It's the long-term endurance that really matters.
And the speed that people want to talk about is just quickness. And that's like 3-4 steps from a starting position. But in order for your quickness to matter, you have to be able to read the play ahead of you. You have to be able to anticipate things. And if you're not anticipating things, it doesn't matter if you're Speedy Gonzalez or a fucking Snorlax. You're useless. And if you don't have chemistry, you're doubly useless. And it's disappointing because they don't lack for talent.
I unfortunately I don't understand that just because the Blues don't have that chemistry issues. However, I do understand quickness versus speed because I was not very quick on my feet, but I was able to get up and down the ice fairly well for when I was playing. So I guess the Rangers' New Year's resolution should be to get better chemistry.
Speaking of disappointment and frustration, Jacob Bourne, guess who's 7-7? And first words after his draft was, "You guys make this way too easy." This guy.
I was gonna say you because nobody is quite as cocky as that. But continue.
I was 0-2, and then I was 5-2, and now I'm 7-7. And I don't really understand why, because my team is really good. It is.
Really good.
I have 10
Is a very
Olympians.
subjective term.
I have 10 Olympians, and not like Michael Roosevelt Olympians. Like, I have Jonathan Taves and Jamie Benn and, well, Bobby Ryan and PK Subban and Brent Seabrook. And just, my team is so good, and we're just 7-7. Jake, do you realize that I'm second in the league in points for?
I do realize that because I was doing my research on the league last night not last night, 2 nights ago when I realized that I was going to lose again for the second straight week. Yes. Are you aware that I am actually 9th in points for now? No, wait, scratch that. I'm 7th, I believe.
Improvement!
Yay!
Yay!
I'm 8th. That's what I am.
All right, improvement and
Which is right.
mediocre counting skills. Hooray!
Yes, this is why I'm a journalism major and not a math major, because I can't count.
Calculators, hooray!
Exactly. But you've also seen the 4th most points, so that might also be why you are sitting at 7-7 instead of, I don't know, maybe 11-3 like the Baltimore Blue Crabs are.
The Baltimore Blue Crabs, they're no joke.
They are.
They're doing everything.
They're unbelievable.
They're getting
Thankfully,
all the points.
I only have to play them once, which I'm glad I might have beat them. Maybe? I'm actually going to look this up.
They are first in goals by 15. They are first in assists by 17. They are first in power play points by 9. They're first in game-winning goals by 2. They are third in block shots, 8 ahead of you, but 32 behind the first place Nighthawks, who I'm playing for first. I'm in the middle at 563. The Blue Crabs are 5th, only 10 behind in defenseman points. I am much further behind with 87, and I have Subban and Seabrook.
Hey, I'm sorry, I got to cut you off for a second. 1 second.
Alright, big thanks are needed to Asking Alexandria for their song Moving On in the outro. Support the official release at AskingAlexandria.com. Thanks to my boy and co-producer Jason Kwong for his help. Find him at JK All The Way on Twitter without 3 for the E.